Hi, Math 206. We are starting our last chapter on measurement. So this first section, 14.1, will be on linear measure. Linear, you want to think of as line or one-dimensional types of measurements, okay? We'll be discussing the English and the metric system of linear measures and how to convert between measures. And my favorite way to convert is dimensional analysis. We'll discuss that. And then, of course, perimeter and circumference. So let's just brainstorm first. Think of some units of linear measure. That would be units that you use to measure one-dimensional things like lengths or distances. Some typical measurements are inches or centimeters or millimeters to measure very small distances, or maybe feet or meters to measure slightly larger distances. How about miles or kilometers to measure very long, great distances? And then there's some non-standard units of measurements. Like, for example, you can say how many of, not the standard English foot, but how many of your own feet, if you were walking heel to toe, how many of your feet would it take to cross the room? Or paper clips? Or there's this non-standard unit of measurement that's actually used by people who own horses, and those are hands to measure how tall a horse is. People stack their hands one on top of another, and that's the measurement of the horse. Anyways, there's lots of activities for elementary school students where you might measure something using some type of non-standard unit of measure, and those are usually quite fun for the kids. All right, so let's first discuss the English system. Of course, we've got inches. There's 12 inches in every foot, and there are 3 feet in every yard. And then there's this weird mile thing where you've got 5,280 feet in every mile, or 1,760 yards for every mile. So let's do some conversions. You've got 5.25 miles, and I want to convert that to see how many yards that is. So let's start by thinking, I know that 1 mile, or there are 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards. This is miles. This is yards. So to go from miles to yards, I'm going to need to multiply by that conversion factor. 5.25 times 1,760. And this would give me 9,240 yards. So 5.25 miles is equal to 9,240 yards. So for these simple types of problems, lots of people get confused. Like, do I multiply or divide by that conversion factor? Here we're going to multiply our number of miles times the number of yards in a mile. And one way, I'll give you an easy way to always know how to do that. But one simple way is after you've done the computation that you think is correct, you think about the reasonableness of your answer. 5 miles is around 9,000 yards. Does that make sense? It should make sense because you should have way more yards than you had miles. If you had done the wrong computation, if instead you had divided, you'd get some really small fraction, like 5.25. If you divided instead by 1,760, you'd get this really, really small number. And it doesn't make sense that 5 miles would be some very small fraction of a yard. So just think about the reasonableness of your answer. All right, let's do the next one. 432 inches. We want to convert that to yards. So what I'm going to do is first go from inches to feet, and then from feet to yards. So we'll start with 432 inches and divide that by 12, which gives me 36 feet. And we're dividing by 12 because there are 12 inches in every 1 foot. Okay, and now I'm going to take this and I'll say 36 feet divided by 3 feet per yard, this would give me 12 yards. So 432 inches is equal to 12 yards. So all of this, again, does it make sense? Should I be dividing or multiplying by that number 12? I think it makes most sense if you think about dimensional analysis, which we'll talk about in a second, but also just thinking about the reasonableness of your answer. Does it make sense that 432 inches is 36 feet? Again, this is 432 inches. Divide that by 12 inches per foot gives me 36 feet. And here, 36 feet, divide that by 3 feet per yard gives me those 12 yards. All right, now let's talk about dimensional analysis. This is where you think about your conversion factors as if they were fractions, so that you could like cancel off the inches or cancel out the feet. So let's do this example here using dimensional analysis. So I'm going from inches to feet, and then from feet to yards. So I'm going to need the conversion factor that takes me from inches to feet, and also the conversion factor that takes me from feet to yards. So I'm going to write down 2 different conversion factors, and we have to decide which one we're going to use. I know that there are 12 inches for every 1 foot, or 1 foot is the same as 12 inches. Okay? These are 2 different fractions, but they both represent the quantity 1, because the numerator and denominator are the same thing, so they kind of cancel out. Right? So again, 12 inches is the same as 1 foot. So this is like a big unit fraction here. We can think of that as like a giant 1. Same thing here, 1 foot is the same as 12 inches. So this is a big fraction that's equivalent to 1. All right, the other conversion factor I'll need is the one that goes from feet to yards. So I know that there are 3 feet is the same as 1 yard. Or I could say 1 yard is the same as 3 feet. Okay, so now that I have these conversion factors written out, these are the ones that I'm going to need. I'll start with my original amount, which is 432 inches. And I'm going to think of that as a fraction over 1. And I want to multiply by the fraction over here, the conversion factor, that will cancel out inches and leave me with feet. So inches will have to be in the denominator for them to cancel. So you look over here at the conversion factors, which of these fractions has inches in the denominator? This is the one you need to multiply by. So I'm going to multiply by 1 foot over 12 inches. Notice that will, in some senses, cancel inches for me and leave me with feet. And then I'm going to also multiply by the next conversion factor that'll take me from feet to yards. So since I need to cancel feet, the fraction that I'm going to multiply by will have to have feet in the denominator. So looking at these 2 choices, only this one, 1 yard over 3 feet, has feet in the denominator. So that's the one I'll multiply by, 1 yard over 3 feet. Noticing that that will cancel feet for me and leave me with yards. Okay, so then if I do this computation, I've got 432, and I'll divide by 12 times 3, and that will leave me with the only units that are left after this computation will be yards. So 432 divided by 36 gives me 12 yards. All right, let's do this in one more example using dimensional analysis. If a cheetah is clocked at 60 miles per hour, what is its speed in feet per second? All right, so now I know that with the miles, I should be able to go from miles to feet pretty easily. And hours, what I'm going to do is I'll go from hours to minutes to seconds. So I'm going to have a few conversion factors that I'll need here, and I'll just write out the ones that I'll need. To go from miles to feet, Again, I know that there are 5,280 feet for every 1 mile, or I'll use the fraction 1 mile for every 5,280 feet. All right, hours to minutes. I know that there in every 1 hour, there are 60 minutes, which is the same as saying 60 minutes in every 1 hour. And then in order to go from minutes to seconds, I've got the two conversion factors. 1 minute equals 60 seconds, or 60 seconds is the same as 1 minute. All right, now that I have the conversion factors right there in front of me, let me start with my original amount, which is 60 miles per hour. And again, you can think of that as a fraction. This is like 60 miles for every 1 hour. And now let me start converting miles to feet. I will multiply by whichever factor will cancel miles for me and leave me with feet. So I need to have miles in the denominator. That'll be this one. So I'll multiply by 5,280 feet over 1 mile. Noticing that that'll cancel miles for me. Great. Now that I've got feet in the numerator, I need to change this hours to go from miles per hour. I need it to be feet per second. So I need seconds in the denominator here. So first I'll go from hours to minutes, then minutes to seconds. So which conversion factor here will cancel hours for me? Notice hours are in the denominator, so I need to have a factor of hours in the numerator in order for these to cancel. Which one of these conversion factors has hours in the numerator? There we go. So that'll be 1 hour for every 60 minutes. So those hours will cancel. And then I'll go from minutes to seconds. Again, I've got minutes down here in the denominator, so my conversion factor should have minutes in the numerator so that they cancel. This is the factor that has minutes in the numerator, so I'll multiply by 1 minute for every 60 seconds. So those minutes will cancel. All right, now let's just double check. What are the units that I have left? Feet in the numerator, seconds in the denominator. So my answer will be in terms of feet per second, which is what I want. So let's write down the computation we need to do. I'll do 60 times 5,280. And in the denominator, I'll have 60. 1 times 1 times 60 times 60. So 60 times 60. And this will be in terms of feet per second. So if I do that computation, I've got 88. It's be 88. And then instead of writing like 88 feet for over 1 second, we can just shorten it to say feet per second. Use our units like that.